It's one of the biggest issues facing our country, gun violence, and there seems to be no solution. Now a new generation of student activists is vowing to change that.
We want change! We want change! We want change!
New York City students walked out of class in solidarity with hundreds of thousands around the country over gun violence, 1 month after the Parkland massacre. Nupol Kiazolu, whose father was shot and killed when she was 8, was among them.
I'm still not, fully, there when it comes to healing with dealing with my father being killed. But I'm using the pain that I've experienced and I'm still experiencing of his loss to help me and push me forward.
Students from the city and suburbs gathered at an after-school rally organized by Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. More blacks are killed by guns than whites, and their murders often ignored. But Adams believes the students may be helping to right old wrongs.
I think that Parkland was an awakening for many that finally heard the cries of those in the urban centers across America. And now that connection is allowing a mass movement that I believe finally will see a movement in the gun reform conversation.
While students in low-income communities of color are often exposed to gun violence at an early age, it was a new experience for many of the Parkland students. Yet students from diverse backgrounds are now standing together for change.
The face of gun violence looks a lot different than the people who are actually dealing with it. And so my hope is that this bridge does occur.
Assault rifles like the one used in Parkland is the main focus of the gun reform conversation. Adams, a former NYPD captain and gun owner, hopes that focus is expanded.
The urban problem are 9mm, handguns, 380s, 38s. No one is having a conversation about that. And so our legislators cannot be lost in the emotion of the suburban and rural problem and ignore the urban problem.
As for the students, they seem certain that this time, enough really is enough.
This is something that's going to result in generational impact. So, for future generations to come, we won't have to experience anything like this.
Many are saying the time to talk is over and that now it's the time for real action. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining us for this conversation, JUMAANE Williams. He's a New York City Council member from Brooklyn's 45th District. He's also the co-chair of the Task Force on Gun Violence, and he's also a candidate for Lieutenant Governor in the state of New York. JUMAANE, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Also with us is Nupol Kiazolu. She is a senior at Nelson Mandela School for Social Justice. She's the president of the Youth Coalition for Black Lives Matter here in New York, and she lost her father to gun violence when she was just 8 years old. Nupol, great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also with us is JERMEL Howard. He's a TV and film actor. You've seen him in Power, All Eyes on Me, and many more. And he just received the MLK Award at the Urban Web Series Awards. And he's been touched by gun violence. He lost his brother to gun violence. JERMEL, great to have you on the show.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you so much. JUMAANE, I want to start with you because you've been on the forefront of this issue for a very long time. Is this something new that we're seeing, or this bridging of this gap between what happens in suburban communities or urban communities? Because you've been talking about gun violence for a very long time.
Well, peace and blessings, and thanks for having me. And I always just want to pay homage when I meet people who have dealt with gun violence. It's amazing to see the strength that you guys have and the ability to take it to do a better purpose. So peace and blessings to both of you and your families. I mean, I sure hope so. This is obviously not a new phenomenon. Every time there are issues in the black and brown community, they often get ignored until it spills over to other communities. And I've been very proud to see the young people in Parkland use this to spark a nationwide discussion that has been absent. At the same time, and I met a couple of the students, and I was very proud of them here in New York, but I also reminded them that we have to make sure that the face of gun violence doesn't get washed out, because the majority of people who are affected by gun violence are black and brown, particularly in black communities, black mothers. Their faces can't be lost here. There are some groups, Moms Demand Action and others, who have been trying to bridge that gap. I'm glad this conversation is moving forward, but we can't forget who the victims of gun violence usually
on
are
a daily
basis. It's very important.
Unfortunately. Nupol, you lost your father to gun violence at the age of 8, and I'm so sorry about that. I can't even imagine what kind of an impact that had on your life. Tell us a little bit about what changed in your life after that.
So my father passed when I was 8 years old. He was shot twice in the chest. So, you know, it's been very hard, you know, for my family to recover ever since. You know, my mom and him together were breadwinners, but now it's 6 of us, and she's a single parent. So, you know, it's been really tough, but we're making it. So, and I'll be the first generation college student.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
So 6 children, your mom.
Yeah.
6 children, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm one of 6 too. So it's a lot going on. That's
Me
a lot.
too.
It's a lot. There we go. Jermel, what about you?
I do a hot 5.
A high 5. Okay. High 5 at 6.
Right.
All right. Jermel, tell us about, you know, how your life changed when you lost your brother.
Oh man, he was shot a bunch of times. Somebody drove up and shot him in Wyandanch, William Madre, and I felt I'm a big brother, so I kind of felt like, you know, did I fail my little brother? Because he was getting into things, and, you know, he would post stuff, and I'm like, take that down, that's silly, you know, you look crazy, you know. So I was kind of trying to check him on things, but you know, it hit me hard because I'm the big brother. So what I did, you know, a lot of people was like, you know, you was a great big brother, don't take it so hard on yourself. But
and sometimes you just can't. The streets, the lure of the streets is too strong, and the guns are too easy to get, and
absolutely,
the whole street scene is too much to ignore.
And the cops didn't, you know, it's a mystery to them, but it's not a mystery to us, you know. That's the thing, it's always a mystery, and we can't figure it, and it's easy to figure out, you know.
Right.
And they just don't put enough work into it. It's not enough care into it. So it's still a mystery. The guy or female or whoever is still running around, you know.
They never arrested anybody.
Never arrested anybody years later, you know. And then how do you handle that? You know, how do you protect yourself?
It's almost like their life is,
it's a fact.
You're still worrying that person is out there.
Absolutely. So I got other little brothers as well, so I've been, you know, more in touch with family and trying to keep my circle tight, you know, because you never know what happens, and anything can happen at any given time. So, you know, just be close to family, man, and hold on and try to be the real big brother. Or even if you're not, I tell people all the time, you don't have the father there, the brother got to be the father, you know. So that was me a lot of times. I was the father feeding my little brothers the cereal and the ice cream, you know, when my mom was gone, and you know, so that was me. So you got to be daddy even if you big brother sometime.
No, definitely. And Nupol, what did it do to you and your mother and your brothers and sisters with not seeing anybody arrested for this? Does that add to your pain?
Yeah, definitely. You know, the Atlanta Police Department, they didn't really put enough effort. To them, he was just another black man. And, you know, my mom, still to this day, 10 years later, she's still fighting, she's still calling, and that's another reason why I go so hard in this movement, because, you know, I don't want another 8-year-old little girl have to experience her father being killed.
And not every dad there to, you know, for your sweet 16, walk you down the aisle, all those things.
Yeah, that's hard, man. That's hard.
Well, you're about to graduate.
Yeah, come to graduation too.
Absolutely.
All right, but I'm sure he'd be very proud of you.
Thank you.
All right, JUMAANE, in terms of how the debate is shaping up, you saw these students. You've been out at a lot of protests. You've led a lot of protests on this issue, demonstrations, rallies, that type of thing. Is this different this time?
You know, I really hope it is, and I really hope it really gets to where we need to go. It's important to talk about the debate because the answers for mass shootings are not always the answers of what's occurring in the street every single day, and that's important to really focus on, because as I always say, I always want to make sure we're focused on the supply and the demand, right? And because the supply is the flow of guns that's coming into our streets, the demand is what's causing people to pick up the guns to begin with. And sometimes people mix those two up, but some of the laws that people want to pass to deal with the mass shootings, and of course I want to make sure that happens, and access to machine guns, they're not the same thing that's going to deal with the handgun violence.
No, we're going to talk about the legislation too, but Nupol, let me just come back to this, and And this happened with, you lost your father in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And the Southern, that culture there it's very different about, people's attitudes about guns are very different than New York.
Definitely. You know, most people are pro-gun and they have, you know, their ideals, and, you know, you can't change that. But, you know, I definitely believe that there needs to be legislation passed that makes it harder for people to get these guns. You know, guns are so easily accessible to young people as well, you know, because I've seen it. Young people just, you know, you can just go to somebody's house and get a gun, or, you know, you can, like in the South, really, like, you know, you can go to Walmart and buy a gun. So, you know, and I really think that's absolutely ridiculous. You know, stricter gun laws need to be passed. You know, people need mental health screenings before even getting a gun.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
we'll talk. We'll continue talking about that. This is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be back right after this.
I had a gun pointed at me, and at that moment, I was thinking, you know, I'm gonna die. I'm like saying my graces in my head.
Nupol, tell us about the whole idea of the student walkout that happened, and because that seemed to be bringing students from a lot of different communities together. Tell us about that.
So I organized for my students at my school to go because I started a Black Lives Matter chapter at my school as well. So we had about 40 kids go with us, and we went to the rally at the Brooklyn Borough President's. He hosted it, but he wasn't there, but, you know, he organized it, got it together. And
well, I think they wanted the students to speak too.
So it was definitely like they pushed for students to, you know, student voices. And I spoke there, and it was just so empowering and very inspiring to see young people from all across the city and just young people all across the country come together, because for too long, you know, we're left in the back burner, although we are the backbones of these movements. You know, young people drive social movements. And, you know, I feel like our voices are being taken seriously now, because I've been a civil rights activist since I was 13 years old. And things
that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, things that I've faced is ageism, misogyny, of course, because I'm a woman. And, you know, now that, you know, I still face it, you know, but it's with this movement, and, you know, as people see I come up, you know, and they see that, yes, I'm articulate, yes, I know what I'm talking about, I know how to speak about these issues, you know, you know, and us as a collective, we're being taken more seriously. So, yeah, I really think that we're starting something beautiful, and this can't just be a moment. You know, this has to...
You're reading my mind, because that was the criticism. Some people are saying, well, you know, it's a moment, they're teenagers or they're students, and this is just going to pass. JERMEL, when you saw all those students walking out, when you saw this, you know, this outcry from the students in Parkland, and then how it galvanized a lot of students in our communities like Nupol, who've been working on this issue in their, you know, for many years without that same kind of national platform being offered to them, what did you think about that?
I'm like, wow, I wish this was there when I was coming up, you know, when things were going on. And I think we missing the people that are, you know, like this gentleman right here that come in the communities and lead things like that for us, you know. For those kids to do something like that on their own, you know, is powerful, man. It speaks a lot. And for her to even be an activist at that age, you know, is powerful. So
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
JUMAANE, one of the things that came out of after Parkland, the students said, and it kind of haunted me because it kind of touched a nerve of something that I felt for a long time. They go, speaking to the adults, go, "You failed us." Have we failed them?
Oh, for sure. That's an absolutely correct statement. You know, two things I wanted to say on the previous question. One is, most of the social movements that we think about, it's young people that have really took the charge and taken it further. People forget Dr. King was like 26 years old. Like, he wasn't that old.
Right.
And if it wasn't for students being in the streets as well, from South Africa to here, and most of the movements have been students. And so I'm very happy that they're there, because that means that we can move it further. But I do also, as you point out, I want to make sure we shout out people who have been doing this work for such a long time.
Yes.
The Furtado brothers, Erica Ford, A.T. Mitchell, we now have Shanduk McFadder, K. Bain, people who have been working on these things for so long but could not get the attention. And it's important to say that, because every time people pretend like the folks in these communities don't care about what's happening, and that's just
like
not true.
Why are they, the people who live in the communities where these problems are, why are they not doing something? And the fact is, people are doing something.
Have been, yes.
It's just there's not national television cameras and
it's working. I just want to say the things that have been introduced, and I give credit to this mayor and this police commission. We have a lot of work to do, but we were told several years ago that the sky would crack open, black and brown people would drop from the sky and start killing each other if we did the things we asked. We have a better way of doing policing. We have a better way of addressing gun violence, a demand issue. We have the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and shootings are at the lowest point they've been since 1951. So we're going in the right direction in terms of New York City.
It should be common sense laws. Like, why would a kid 18 who's still in 12th grade, need a gun?
Nupol, what do you think? What is the goal? Like, are there specific goals that you and the other students have, or is there? What would you like to see happen? Because we're hearing many different things, like ban all guns, ban assault rifles, have some kind of background checks so that people that have mental problems or violent criminal histories can't get their hands on them. What are some of the things that resonate with you and the fellow students?
Like some things that I'd like to see for sure is more common sense gun laws. Also like like you were saying, like, there needs to be mental screenings before people obtain guns. Young people, should not just be able to get guns so easily. They should not be so easily accessible. And older people as well. Anybody that's not, fit to own a gun should not have one. And one thing that really, like, it brings me back to when I was in Charlottesville. I was one of the youngest counter-protesters there on August 12th. And, the KKK and them, they had their, militia. They were like suited up.
It's real down there.
Yeah.
For people that have,
definitely.
Yeah.
people that,
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I've witnessed it. There's people in New York sometimes don't understand that it really is real.
Yeah, like they were ready to shoot to kill, and you could just look at in some of their eyes and like see that they really wanted to.
Empty.
Yeah, and you could just tell that they're not all there mentally. I had a gun pointed at me, and at that moment, I was thinking, I'm gonna die. I'm like saying my graces in my head, and a lot of people ask me like, well, what did you tell your mom when you were going down there? I told her that I was going for an anti-white supremacy rally. I didn't mention that the KKK or anything else was going to be there because I didn't want to scare her. So, but I knew that I had to be down there to help those people, that were going to be affected that actually live in Charlottesville. So, like just experiencing that as well. Like, there's no reason why these people should be allowed to have guns, like military-grade weapons.
Right, military-grade weapons. What do you think about that, JERMEL?
Yeah, she touched on something. She says common sense. And those, it should be common sense laws. Like, why would a kid 18 who's still in 12th grade, need a gun? At all. So why do we need to be that age to, so it's just common sense, man. If you can get an assault rifle, but you can't get a pistol until you're 21.
Right, like the shooter in Parkland.
That's ridiculous.
There was no waiting period for an assault rifle, but there was a 3-day waiting period for a handgun.
That's crazy.
There's a few things there. One, obviously common sense gun laws doesn't mean you have to take away the Second Amendment. One is we just have to figure out there's too much unfettered access to guns, and it's not about legal or illegal guns, because all illegal guns were legal at some point, and so we have to have a checkpoint of this access to guns. But also on the demand side, we always have to talk about the demand side, and I always want to be careful when we talk about mental illness and mental health, because they're not necessarily interchangeable. So obviously people with mental illness don't, for the vast majority of folks, are not prone to crime.
I want to thank all of you for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers.
Thank you.
City Council Member JUMAANE Williams and Nupol Kiazolu, thank you so much for being with us. And JERMEL Howard, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.